Now, listed before you are 8 mitigating factors. The defendant was 27 at the time of the offense, and she had no prior criminal history. You've heard evidence to that effect already. She was born on, there was a driver's license admitted of her birth date of July 9th, 1980. She has no prior criminal history. That was presented to you during the trial. Number 3, that she was a good friend. You will hear from 2 witnesses during this phase of the proceeding from Ms. Arias. You already met one, Daryl Brewer. You recall you met him back in January. He was the longtime boyfriend of Ms. Arias, and in fact, the one that preceded Mr. Alexander. You spent some time together. You'll hear about the role she played in his life and in his son's life as well. You'll also hear from a friend of hers, I don't quite say lifelong friend because they lost touch, later in Ms. Arias' mid-20s when she got together with Mr. Alexander. Her name is Patty Womack. She will talk to you a little bit about the Jodi Arias she knew, her upbringing. She will talk about the lack of support Ms. Arias had from her family. She will describe that for you from her observations. You have heard during the course of the trial that Ms. Arias suffered abuse and neglect as a child and as an adult. Factors 6, 7, and 8. Trying to make the best of her life, trying to improve herself and her work as an artist. You heard a little bit during the course of this trial about how prepaid legal was one of the things that Ms. Arias was trying to do to improve herself and make the best of her life. How even her desire to join the Mormon Church was in that line. Her desire to improve herself, to maintain her goals of motherhood, marriage, and having a business. And Mr. Brewer will talk about that a little bit as well. And talented artists. At the end of these proceedings, Ms. Arias will talk to you. You'll see some of her artwork. You will see her work. You can judge for yourself whether or not that is proven to you. But as it relates to those final factors, those final 3 factors, Ms. Arias will discuss those and talk to you about how she viewed her life. And she'll touch on all these factors in a way that she was not permitted to beforehand. When you hear all the evidence, when you consider all the mitigating factors, when you understand who Ms. Arias is, you will understand that life is the appropriate penalty.
One of the things that the jury instructions that the court read to you was that with regard to this mitigating factors, the connection or lack of connection to the murder may impact the quality. And that's the reason that these factors, as they are set out to you, are not really worth any are not of any importance. For example, if you take a look at this indication, and this was put up there for you, that the defendant was 27 years old. Well, there's no connection, if you will, between her age and the fact that she took a knife and stuck it into Mr. Alexander's chest.
Objection, argument improper.
Approach, please. You may continue.
There is no connection between her age and what she did to Mr. Alexander. And one of the things that the previous page, on page 6, indicates is that quality, that connection is something that you may consider. For example, the fact that she has no prior criminal history. Again, where is the connection? What does that have to do with what happened on June 4th of 2008? The same can be said for her being a good friend to whom? And how is that important to what happened on June 4th of 2008? Additionally, there's this indication that somehow she lacked support from her family. As you saw here today, And as you've seen throughout these proceedings and from the defendant's own mouth, as she indicated that her mother was here, that's an indication of support. But even though there was or there wasn't support, there's nothing to do with the killing. She talks about having suffered abuse, neglect as a child and as an adult. Again, where's the connection? And the fact that she's trying to better herself or that she is trying to do the best in her life, again, what does that have to do? And that she's a good artist, again, what does that have to do with the murder? There's another aspect of these that we need to talk about, and specifically, these are not mitigating circumstances.
Objection, it's the law.
Sustained.
With regard to these, number 2, they indicate to you that the defendant has no criminal history. Really? Were you present when she was testifying? Do you remember her testifying? And do you remember her testimony that she was untruthful to you?
Objection, Your Honor. Mischaracterizes the testimony. It's argumentative.
As stated, sustained.
Do you remember the colloquy involving the gas cans? Do you remember what she told you about that? And she took an oath to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. When somebody takes a stand and they are not being truthful, that is a crime. True, she hasn't been convicted of it, but does that mean that she has no prior criminal history? That happened before this, and that is something for your consideration. And that is a microcosmic, if you will, view of the rest of these mitigating circumstances as they are laid out. That she was 27 years old. Evidence has been presented that she has gone through 4 boyfriends, that she has gone through numerous jobs.
Objection, argumentative.
Overruled.
That she, according to them, there's going to be evidence that's going to be presented that she was a good caretaker of Mr. Brewer's child, that she had a good relationship with him. So in those 27 years, she has lived a lot. It's not like she was an 18, 19-year-old child that had never been out in the world. Additionally, that she was a good friend. Good friend to whom? That apparently to this individual that will come in and testify to you that she has been a good friend to the defendant. What does that mean? When was she a good friend? And how does that make this a mitigating circumstance? That she lacks support from her family. You saw her mother here. How do we know, other than from the defendant's mouth, that she lacked support from her family? And remember, you keep in mind the previous 2 other proceedings, including the guilt phase, where perhaps when she was speaking to you, there were those inconsistencies and those issues with her speaking to you. That she suffered abuse and neglect as a child and as an adult. That is something that has been gone over many times on the witness stand during her 18 days that she was up there. And during that time, as you know, no evidence was presented from any medical facility, from a police agency, and from anybody else that would support that, just the defendant's word. That she's trying to make the best of her life and is trying to improve herself. Well, isn't that just what everybody tries to do? Isn't that just normal? Isn't that something that most people do? Why is that a mitigating circumstance? And finally, something about her being a talented artist. And you've heard that as a talented artist, she somehow was somebody that could, you were told about paintings. You were also been told from the witness stand that she's a photographer. Yes, I guess in a way she is a talented artist because she can take photographs of Mr. Alexander in the shower that look like the Calvin Klein commercial. And after she takes pictures of him in that position, and after there are inadvertent photographs of her committing this crime, do we know? That she's so talented that she can take that camera and delete the images that negatively affect her.
Argumentative is facts not to be considered.
Overruled.
The fact that she's that talented indicates to you, in this particular case, that all of these items that have been presented to you, every single one of them, is nothing more than the defendant's statements attempting to gain sympathy. And in view of the fact that there are no mitigating circumstances in this case, the only appropriate sentence based on what the jury instructions tell you that you should do is death. Thank you.